The hum of the fluorescent light was the loudest thing in the room. It was a thin, grating sound, the kind that worked its way into the back of your skull until you could almost hear your own heartbeat keeping rhythm with it. Detective Harper sat across the table, his elbows planted, fingers laced loosely. Not tight enough to look confrontational, not loose enough to seem relaxed. His eyes, however, were anything but casual. They had that particular stillness detectives cultivated over years, a predator's patience disguised as mild curiosity. The woman across from him, Evelyn Ross, stared at the tabletop as if it had personally betrayed her. 49, skin pale under the harsh light, hair pulled back in a bun that sagged as the hours dragged on. She didn't speak, didn't shift, didn't even blink much. Beside her, her son, Jason, 26, sharp jawline shadowed by stubble, slouched in the chair, his arms crossed. He was trying for indifference, but every muscle in his body looked wired tight. Harper let the silence stretch. Silence was a tool. In here, time wasn't measured in minutes or hours. It was measured in pressure. Every second that ticked by without conversation became another brick on the chest. Finally, Harper leaned forward. "You know why you're here," he said. It wasn't a question. Jason lifted his chin, eyes narrowing. "We've been through this. We don't know anything about." "You don't know anything about Marcus Kane," Harper finished for him. "The man whose body was found in your garage." Evelyn's lips pressed together so tightly the color drained from them. Jason's jaw shifted, just slightly. The first crack. Harper didn't pounce. "Not yet. Here's the thing," he continued, voice steady, almost conversational. "We've got forensics running. Blood on the concrete, tire tracks leading in and out, neighbors who heard, let's just say, unusual noises around midnight." He opened a thin folder on the table, turning a glossy crime scene photo toward them. "That's your garage. That's Marcus." Jason didn't look. Evelyn did, for a fraction of a second. Her hand twitched toward her lap, then froze. She blinked twice. Harper filed that away. It had been 27 hours since their arrest, 12 since they'd been in this room. In that time, the story had changed 3 times. First, they'd claimed not to know Marcus. Then they admitted he'd been an acquaintance who stopped by sometimes. Now they were holding to a thin, fraying rope. Marcus had shown up uninvited. They'd asked him to leave, and that was the last they'd seen of him. The problem was, Marcus had left in a body bag. Jason's eyes flicked toward the door, the way people do when they're thinking about escape. It wasn't subtle. Harper saw it, noted it, let it pass. "I'll tell you what I think happened," Harper said, sitting back, folding his hands over his stomach. "Marcus shows up. Something's said, something's done. Maybe an old grudge, maybe money, maybe something personal. You two, you handle it, and then instead of calling it in, you decide to make it go away." His tone was almost kind. Almost. Jason leaned forward, his voice tightening. "You're making it sound like, I'm making it sound like what the evidence says." Harper flipped another photo onto the table. A close-up of a .38 revolver, its cylinder open. "This was found under your workbench. That's not registered to you, Jason. It's not registered to anyone in your household. And it's got Marcus Kane's blood on the grip." Evelyn's head snapped toward her son then. The first real movement from her in an hour. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Her pupils were wide, her lips slightly parted. Harper saw it. He knew exactly what it meant. She didn't know he'd kept the gun there. Jason's mouth opened, closed. "That's not," he started, then stopped. His jaw worked like he was chewing on words he couldn't quite swallow. Harper let the pause bloom again, slow and suffocating. Then he turned, almost casually, to Evelyn. "You raised him, didn't you? You taught him right from wrong. You know there's a line you don't cross? I think you know exactly when he crossed it." Evelyn's eyes flickered, not to Jason, but to the photo. Then down to her lap. Her throat moved in a swallow. "Hey, it would be nice to have you with us on this channel. Please kindly click on the subscribe button now to join us on Crime Whispers. Turn on your notifications and leave us a like." Jason looked at her. "Mom," he started, but Harper was already sliding another sheet across the table. This one wasn't a photo, it was a typed transcript. "This," he said, tapping it, "is from a witness statement. Your neighbor, Mr. Harlan. He says he saw you, Jason, dragging something heavy from your car into the garage at about 1 in the morning. And he says your mother was standing in the doorway, watching." The room shifted then. Not physically, The walls didn't move, but the air thickened. Evelyn's breath caught, barely audible. Jason's face went pale under the stubble. Harper leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "So which one of you is going to tell me the truth first?" Jason's hands balled into fists on the table. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, but there was no force behind it now. His voice had lost that sharp edge. It sounded like someone trying to shout underwater. Evelyn still hadn't looked up. Harper studied her for a long moment, the tremor in her left hand, the way her right foot tapped once against the tile and then went still. Her breathing was shallow, barely moving her shoulders. "You ever notice," Harper said quietly, "how the truth doesn't need help? You can leave it alone for hours, days, years. It's still the same. But lies..." He leaned in, elbows on the table. "Lies need tending. You've got to water them, feed them, patch the holes when they start leaking. That's why you're both exhausted right now. You're not carrying grief, you're carrying the weight of keeping your story alive." Jason's lips pressed into a thin line. Evelyn's eyes flicked to Harper for the briefest moment, a flash of something raw, and then away. Harper didn't press, not yet. He reached into the folder and pulled out a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a folded piece of fabric. He set it on the table between them. "This," he said, "is the shirt Marcus was wearing when he died. Blood pattern analysis says he was shot at close range, 3 feet or less. And the fibers here," he pointed to a jagged tear near the collar, "match a blue flannel shirt, women's medium, found in your laundry hamper, Evelyn." That landed like a hammer. Evelyn's breath hitched audibly this time, and Jason's head snapped toward her so fast the chair creaked. "Mom?" His voice cracked. "What the hell?" "Don't," she said sharply, her voice low and tight. It was the first word she'd spoken in hours, and it came out like a warning. Harper watched them both, his eyes patient, his mouth neutral. He'd seen it before, the tiny shift when silence stopped being an ally and became unbearable. "Do you want me to tell the story?" Harper said softly, "or do you want to?" Neither of them answered, but Evelyn's right hand, still on her lap, began to tremble in small, uneven pulses. Jason shifted in his seat, his jaw clenched. "She didn't do anything," he said, but there was no heat in it. It sounded more like a plea than a statement. Harper leaned back slightly. "Then tell me who did." Silence. And then, so quiet Harper almost missed it, Evelyn said, "It wasn't supposed to happen." Evelyn's words seemed to hang in the air like smoke, curling and fading, but still impossible to ignore. Harper didn't rush her. He knew that first crack in the dam wasn't enough. You had to wait until the pressure inside was unbearable before the whole thing split open. Jason shifted in his seat. "Mom, don't." She cut him a look, sharp enough to slice the air. "Stop." Her voice was firmer now, though it wavered at the edges. She looked down at her hands, knotted together in her lap. "He wasn't supposed to be there that night." Harper leaned forward slightly, letting his tone stay gentle. "Marcus?" She gave the smallest nod. "What happened?" Her eyes didn't meet his. We just wanted to scare him, that's all." Jason exhaled hard, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're twisting this," he said to Harper, but his voice didn't have the conviction it had earlier. Harper's gaze stayed on Evelyn. "Why scare him?" She pressed her lips together. He'd been threatening Jason, calling, showing up. Jason muttered, "It wasn't like that." Evelyn ignored him. "I told him to stop coming around. Told him I'd call the police. That night, Jason said he saw his car down the street. We thought..." She stopped herself, swallowed hard. "You thought what?" Harper asked quietly. Her voice was barely audible. "We thought we could make him leave for good." Jason's leg bounced under the table now, rapid and restless. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," he said, almost to himself. Harper slid the photos back toward them, one by one, each one a frozen moment of the aftermath. The garage floor, the revolver, Marcus's still face. But it did happen like that. Evelyn's eyes stayed locked on the last photo, and her breath quickened. I told him not to pull the trigger." Jason's head dropped into his hands. The hum of the light seemed louder now, the air heavier. Harper knew he had the fullest. It had been raining that morning, the kind of rain that didn't pour so much as linger, hanging in the air like a damp whisper. Evelyn Ross stood at the kitchen window of her small house on Brookside Lane, watching rivulets slide down the glass. She'd always liked the rain. It gave the world a muted quality, softened the edges. But that day, it made her feel trapped. Jason was at the table behind her, hunched over a plate of half-eaten toast, scrolling on his phone. His long legs stretched out under the table, one socked foot tapping absently on the linoleum. He'd been back home for 2 months now, just until I figure things out, which Evelyn knew really meant until I run out of excuses. The knock came at 9:17 a.m. It wasn't the sharp, neighborly kind of knock. It was slow, deliberate. Evelyn turned from the window, frowning, and walked to the door. When she opened it, Marcus Kane was standing there. He was taller than she remembered, broader through the shoulders, his dark hair wet and slicked back from the rain. He wore a black jacket, unzipped over a gray hoodie, his hands shoved deep in the pockets. His eyes, pale, almost colorless, fixed on her with a kind of casual ownership that made her grip the edge of the door. "Evelyn," he said, his voice smooth but carrying a weight beneath it. "We need to talk." Behind her, Jason's chair scraped the floor. "What the hell are you doing here?" he called out. Marcus's mouth curved in a slow, humorless smile. "Good to see you two, kid." Evelyn's stomach tightened. She stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door nearly closed behind her. "You can't be here, Marcus." His eyes flicked past her to the gap in the door. "You planning to invite me in, or is this going to be one of those doorstep conversations?" She kept her voice low. "I told you, it's over. You stay away from him." He chuckled, a sound that didn't touch his eyes. "Over? You think you get to decide that?" From inside, Jason shouted, "Mom, come back in." Marcus took a step forward, and Evelyn caught the faint scent of cigarette smoke and rain on his clothes. "He owes me, Evelyn. You both know it, and I'm not walking away until I get what's mine." Her grip on the door tightened. "You need to leave." For a moment, he just stared at her. Then his smile vanished and his voice dropped low. "You tell him I'll be back. Sooner than he thinks." He turned and walked down the steps, his boots splashing through a shallow puddle, never once looking back. When she closed the door, Jason was already on his feet, his face pale but his jaw set. "I told you he wouldn't just let it go," he said. Evelyn leaned against the door, the weight of it pressing into her spine. "We'll figure something out." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying, to him and to herself. The days that followed Marcus's visit were heavy with a kind of nervous energy Evelyn couldn't shake. It was in the way Jason paced the living room at night, the way she caught him staring out the window as if expecting headlights to appear at any moment. Even the rain seemed to linger longer than usual, trapping them in the small house together. Marcus didn't call right away, but his absence didn't feel like relief. It felt like the pause before a storm. Then, one Tuesday evening, the phone rang. Evelyn was in the kitchen, pulling a casserole from the oven. Jason was in the living room, but when the first few words reached him, he was already moving toward her. "You've got 3 days," Marcus's voice said through the receiver. "After that, I'm coming to collect." "Marcus," she began, "you think I'm playing with you?" His tone had sharpened. "I know where you live, Evelyn. I know when your boy's home. I know his routines. If I have to come get what I'm owed, I'm not going to be nice about it." She hung up without another word, her hand trembling around the phone. Jason was already in the doorway. "It was him, wasn't it?" She nodded. Jason's jaw flexed. "I'll handle it." The next few days passed like a slow bleed. Evelyn tried to go about her routines, grocery store runs, laundry, paying bills, but everything felt staged, like she was pretending to live in a normal world while something ugly crept closer. On Thursday night, the headlights came. She'd just finished washing the dinner dishes when she saw them through the front curtains, twin beams cutting through the drizzle, stopping at the curb outside their house. The engine idled, low and steady. Jason was off the couch in an instant, pulling the curtain back just enough to see. His face darkened. "It's him." Marcus didn't get out of the car. He just sat there, a cigarette glowing between his fingers, watching the house. 10 minutes passed, 15. Then he drove away, slow and deliberate. The next morning, Evelyn found a folded piece of paper tucked into the gap of the front door. Inside, in blocky handwriting, 3 days is up. Jason read it over her shoulder, then crumpled it in his fist. "We're not letting him run this." She hesitated. "What are you thinking?" "Nothing," he said too quickly, tossing the paper into the trash. But that night, she noticed him in the garage, rummaging through boxes, the smell of gun oil faint in the air. Over the next week, Marcus's appearances became less like visits and more like hauntings. The car in the driveway across the street, the cigarette butts on their lawn, the faint sound of a knock late at night, gone when she checked the door. Evelyn found herself flinching at every sound, her body on edge. Jason grew quieter, but more restless, pacing rooms like a caged animal. By the time the final night came, it didn't feel like a single decision. It felt like the inevitable end of something that had been winding tighter and tighter, waiting to snap. It was a Friday, cold enough that the air bit at the skin. The rain had stopped hours earlier, leaving the streets slick and black, the streetlights casting warped halos on the pavement. Evelyn couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room in her robe, the TV on low but unwatched, her ears tuned to the world outside. Jason was in the garage. She could hear the muffled clink of metal, the soft scrape of something being moved. She didn't ask what he was doing anymore. She already knew. At 12:47 a.m., she heard it. The low rumble of an engine, the slow roll of tires on wet asphalt. She froze, her eyes darting to the window. Headlights swept across the wall. Her stomach dropped. Jason's voice came from the doorway to the garage. "It's him." Marcus's car pulled up to the curb like it belonged there. The driver's door opened and he stepped out, a dark silhouette against the streetlight. His walk was unhurried, confident. Jason moved past her toward the front door. "I'll deal with this." Evelyn caught his arm. "Jason," he shook her off. "No more games." The door swung open before Marcus even reached the steps. "Well," Marcus said, a smirk playing on his lips, "isn't this cozy?" "You need to leave," Jason said flatly. Marcus took another step forward, his hands buried in his jacket pockets. "I told you. I'm not leaving without what's mine. What do you think about this tragic event? Please leave your thoughts in the comments section and tell us where you are watching from. Your engagement helps us grow this channel." Evelyn stood in the doorway behind her son, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear their words. Jason's voice was low, controlled. "You're not getting a damn thing from us." Marcus's pale eyes shifted, locking on Evelyn. "And what about you, sweetheart? You still playing the good mother, or have you told him the truth yet?" Jason stiffened. "Don't talk to her," Marcus chuckled. "Touchy. Must have hit a nerve." Jason stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "I said? It happened fast. Too fast." Marcus's right hand came out of his pocket, glinting in the porch light. Not a gun, but a length of metal pipe, no more than a foot long. Jason moved without thinking. One hand shoved Marcus back, the other reached for the waistband of his jeans. The revolver appeared like it had always been there. Evelyn's breath caught. "Jason, no." The first shot cracked the night open. Marcus staggered, a bloom of red darkening his hoodie. The second came a heartbeat later, and Marcus crumpled onto the wet grass. Jason stood over him, chest heaving, the gun still raised. For a moment, the only sound was Evelyn's ragged breathing. Then Jason looked back at her, his face pale, but his eyes wild. "Help me get him inside." She didn't move at first. She couldn't. But then he said it again, louder, and she found herself nodding, her legs carrying her forward without permission. Between them, they dragged Marcus into the garage. The body left a dark smear on the driveway, diluted by the wet ground. Jason kicked the door shut behind them. The smell of blood and gunpowder hung thick in the air. Evelyn stood frozen, staring at the man on the floor. She knew he was gone. She could see it in the stillness, in the way his eyes didn't close all the way. Jason was already moving, pulling a tarp from a shelf, wrapping Marcus up tight. "We'll dump him somewhere. Nobody saw anything." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Jason?" He didn't look up. "It's done, Mom. We just have to make it go away." The garage felt smaller with Marcus Kane in it. Not alive, not moving, but taking up more space than any living man could. The tarp crinkled as Jason wrapped it around him, the sound loud and clumsy in the still night. Evelyn stood near the door, her hands clasped tight enough that her knuckles ached. The air smelled of motor oil, blood, and something else she couldn't name. Something metallic and final. Jason worked quickly, too quickly. His movements were sharp, unplanned, like he was trying to outrun his own thoughts. He tied the tarp with lengths of yellow nylon rope he'd found on a shelf, knotting them in jerks. "You need to clean that up." he said without looking at her. She followed his gaze to the smear of blood on the garage floor. It was darker now, tackier, and it had already begun to sink into the concrete. She found an old rag and a bottle of cleaner and knelt, scrubbing in small, frantic circles. The red spread before it faded, leaving a dull pink shadow that no amount of scrubbing could erase. Jason hefted the body once, testing the weight. "Help me." She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough for him to glance at her, eyes flashing. "Mom, now." Her arms felt weightless as she bent to lift one end of the tarp. The body was heavier than she expected, heavier in a way that wasn't just about mass. They shuffled toward the back door of the garage, Marcus's weight shifting in awkward jolts between them. They made it 3 steps before the sound hit them, a sharp creak from somewhere outside. Jason froze. Evelyn's eyes darted to the small window above the workbench. A porch light across the street clicked on. "Move," Jason hissed, and they heaved the body behind a stack of storage bins, out of sight from the window. They waited. Seconds stretched. The porch light across the way clicked off again. Jason exhaled hard. "We'll wait until it's quiet, then we load him into the car." Evelyn sank onto a stool, her hands shaking. She could feel the vibration of her pulse in her fingertips. The waiting felt longer than the act itself. Each sound, a car passing, the rustle of leaves, seemed like it could be the one that caught them. At 3:12 a.m., Jason decided it was time. They dragged Marcus to the car, his car, Evelyn realized too late. Jason popped the trunk and they struggled to fold him inside. The lid clicked shut with a dull finality. Jason wiped his hands on his jeans. "I'll take him out past the quarry. You stay here." She caught his sleeve. "What if someone sees you?" "They won't." He was gone before she could say anything else. When he came back just after dawn, he said nothing, just went to his room and shut the door. By noon, the neighborhood was alive again. Kids riding bikes, a dog barking somewhere down the block. It felt obscene, the way the world went on like nothing had happened. Evelyn tried to believe they'd gotten away with it. But on Sunday morning, a knock at the door shattered that illusion. It was Detective Harper. Detective Harper didn't look like the TV kind of detective. No trench coat, no gravelly voice. He was tall, lean, with the kind of presence that could slip between friendly and intimidating without changing a single expression. "Morning, Mrs. Ross," he said when she opened the door. His tone was polite, but his eyes were scanning, not just her, but the space behind her, the details of the living room she hadn't bothered to straighten. "Mind if I ask you a couple of questions?" Evelyn stepped aside, her pulse thudding in her ears. "Of course." Jason wasn't in the room, thank God. Harper walked in, slow, taking in the framed photos on the wall, the faint smell of bleach lingering under the usual scent of coffee. "You knew Marcus Kane?" Evelyn's fingers tightened around the edge of the couch cushion. "He came by sometimes. I wouldn't say we were close. Right?" Harper nodded, as if making a mental note. "You see him Friday night?" Her heartbeat skipped. "No." "Why?" Harper studied her for a moment before answering. "He was reported missing yesterday, last seen heading this direction." Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. "Oh, I didn't know." "That's what his sister said," Harper replied. He let the silence hang, then added, "Your neighbor, Mr. Harlan, mentioned hearing some noise from your garage around midnight Friday. Said it sounded like moving furniture, heavy furniture." Evelyn forced a small laugh. "Jason was working on something out there, probably tools or boxes." "Sure," Harper said easily. "Mind if I take a quick look?" Her throat went dry. "Is that necessary?" He smiled politely. "Just routine." She didn't remember moving aside to let him through, but suddenly he was stepping into the garage. He paused just inside, his eyes sweeping the space. The smell of bleach was stronger here. Harper crouched near a darkened patch on the concrete. "New cleaning?" he asked without looking up. "Jason likes to keep things tidy," she said quickly. Harper ran his fingers lightly over the spot, then stood. "You mind if our forensics team comes by later? Just to rule things out?" Her stomach dropped. If you think that's necessary." 2 hours later, the team arrived. Cameras clicked, swabs were taken, and the hum of conversation filled the space. Evelyn stayed in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug she didn't drink from. By evening, Jason was home. She told him everything in a rush. His jaw tightened, but he didn't panic, not outwardly. "They've got nothing," he said. "Just keep calm." But by Tuesday morning, Harper was back, this time with 2 uniformed officers and a warrant. They found Marcus's wallet in a trash bag at the side of the house. His blood was on the grip of the revolver under the workbench, and in the trunk of Jason's car, under a thin layer of dirt and leaves, they found a single button torn from Marcus's hoodie. The arrests happened quietly. No sirens, no shouting, just the click of handcuffs and the low murmur of Miranda rights. 27 hours later, Evelyn and Jason were sitting across from Harper in that room with the humming fluorescent light. The hum of the light hadn't changed, but the room felt different now. When they'd first walked in, Evelyn and Jason had sat like stone, backs straight, eyes guarded. Now, Evelyn's shoulders were hunched, her fingers knotted in her lap. Jason's leg bounced under the table, like it was trying to run away without him. Detective Harper flipped open his folder again, but this time he didn't spread the photos out like weapons. He set one single sheet in front of them, a lab report. Blood spatter, he said simply. It's conclusive. Marcus Kane was shot inside your garage, at close range. Both of you were there. The fibers from your shirt, Evelyn, matched the tear in his hoodie where the first bullet hit. Jason, your fingerprints are on the revolver and on the rope used to bind the tarp. Jason looked at the wall, his jaw set. Evelyn stared at the paper, her breathing shallow. Harper's voice softened. The only thing you can decide now is how much of this story you want the jury to hear from you, and how much they're going to hear from me. Jason's hands clenched on the edge of the table. We didn't plan to kill him. Evelyn's head dropped into her hands. The words came out muffled. He wouldn't leave us alone. He was threatening Jason. I thought if we scared him. She broke off, her voice cracking. Harper let her speak, saying nothing, just letting the silence pull the rest out of her. Jason finally turned to him. I shot him. It was me. She tried to stop me. Evelyn's head snapped up. No. Jason cut her off. It's done, Mom. I'm not letting you take this. The rest of the confession was clinical. The argument, the pipe, the shots, the tarp, the quarry. Harper didn't need to press anymore. They were talking because the weight of keeping it in had finally become heavier than the truth itself. The trial was swift. The prosecution painted Marcus Kane as a man with a criminal past, but argued that his death was not self-defense, it was an execution. They leaned hard on the cleanup, the concealment, the lies told to investigators. Evelyn's defense tried to separate her from the act, painting her as a frightened mother caught up in her son's panic. But the blood on her shirt, the witness who saw her in the doorway, it was too much to explain away. The verdict came in after just 6 hours of deliberation. Guilty. First-degree murder for Jason Ross. Accessory to murder, obstruction of justice, and illegal possession of a firearm for Evelyn Ross. When the judge read the sentences, life without parole for Jason, life with the possibility of parole after 25 years for Evelyn, the courtroom was silent, except for the faint scrape of the bailiff's chair. Jason didn't look at his mother as they led him away. Evelyn tried to, but his eyes stayed fixed ahead. In the end, the story wasn't just about Marcus Kane's death. It was about how fear curdles into desperation, how desperation hardens into violence, and how violence, once done, can't ever be undone. In the quiet of her cell at night, Evelyn would replay that first knock at the door. She'd wonder if there was a single moment where she could have changed everything. Called the police, sent Jason away, refused to open the door. But the thing about moments is, you only know their weight once they've already passed. And by then, the hum of the fluorescent light is all you have left. Thanks for watching Crime Whispers. If this story gripped you, like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more disturbing true crime stories that lurk in plain sight. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.